Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. We are live now. Day 2 of the Kuumba Kickback. This is the Black and Anglophile Fandom panel. Let me introduce my co-panelists here before I introduce myself. Why don't we start with Robyn?
Hi, everyone. I'm Robyn. I'm co-founder and chief community officer at Black Girls Create, and co-host of Wizard Team, our Harry Potter podcast, and co-host of Tarbis, our Doctor Who podcast, and lover of all things British media.
Cool.
Almost all things British media.
Cass, you're up.
Hi, I'm Cass. I live in the DC area, so it's the mid-afternoon for me, not the early afternoon. I am currently working on and getting ready to launch a history podcast, which will start with British medieval history. And I love British media, from movies and TV to sports. So that's me.
All right. I'm Amanda-Rae Prescott. I have a really active Twitter blog. I also am an occasional freelance writer for Den of Geek. I'm a cosplayer, a Doctor Who personality, whatever. It is what it is. I also have loved British media since I was a kid. Grew up in the 90s without cable, watching PBS, and it just continued on from there into the internet age. And that's why I created this panel, because I realized there's so much conversation in the Black community and Black nerd community about being into anime and other Asian media, and a lot of stuff about comics and, Western traditional cartoons and stuff. And then I'm like, there's nothing here for us Anglophiles who are also Black. So this is basically why I came up with this panel. Let's start with the more fun stuff for my co-panelists. Here's my first question. When was your first encounter with UK pop culture, and what fandom, TV show, movie, what was it? Anybody can jump in with us.
It's got to be PBS.
Yeah.
Right. I can't pinpoint the first thing, but it would definitely have been on PBS. I would assume it was a masterpiece period drama. My brain says it was Pride and Prejudice, but I know that chronologically that's not true. I was 10 when Pride and Prejudice came out, and I don't think I watched it until after I'd read the book when I was 12. I read the book at 11 or 12, and then I watched the miniseries. But yeah, so I don't know the exact thing, but I know that it was on PBS. And shout out to my PBS station and viewers like you, because that was my jam as a child and is my jam today.
Yes. Cass, what was your first encounter?
I've been thinking about this for a week, and I honestly don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that it was probably something about history, because I was a massive history nerd as a child. I had all the books about Egypt and England, and like Robyn said, I'm pretty sure that my first introduction to actual modern British media was probably PBS. And I like Robyn, I don't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure that was a moment where I was like, these costumes are really pretty. Didn't really understand what was going on, but I'm like, the costumes are pretty and their accents are weird and cool. I want to watch more of this. And it just kind of spiraled.
For me, of course, growing up in New York City without cable, PBS is your first thing. I mean, I'm sure there's some history documentary somewhere. I also specifically remember those repeats of as time goes by and keeping up appearances during my childhood. Also, in terms of period dramas, I specifically remember seeing Alex Kingston in Moll Flanders before I was supposed to. And the Forsyte Saga reboot in 2002 or 3 or 4, depending on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was two really distinctive in my mind. And then, of course, by the time I got to college, it was stuff like, Little Dorrit and all the Jane Austen reboots in the late 2000s. And then from there, I've just been live tweeting every PBS masterpiece thing ever since then. It's been crazy life of following things. But it's great that you guys said that PBS is your first encounter, because I was actually expecting something some interesting different interests, but it just goes to show you that no matter how old you are, at some point you're going to either become fascinated with PBS because they're educational programs or because of their pop culture content.
Yeah.
Now,
I will say
as
that my
kids
first,
or
like,
teenagers.
oh, sorry.
No,
I was gonna say, I will say though that my first like idea of being an Anglophile came from music, and that was because I was a big boy band fan, and then I like take that and like Wham and stuff like that. Like that is when I was like, oh, I like British things like in general. So I think like my first time being like, oh, I probably didn't use the word Anglophile because I, wasn't aware, but like when I was like, oh, I like everything British, I think it was because of music.
Yeah, if we're talking about the moment when I realized that I really did appreciate and like I was really into British media, it probably was that era when, Skins and Misfits were all coming out. And I was just really intrigued by the way British media showed teenagers as like not being these, it's very different than the way they show it in the United States. So I remember being very intrigued by that. And so I think that was probably the moment when I realized that I really liked British media specifically, but it just wasn't necessarily my first encounter with British media.
Makes sense. For me, it was sort of in high school because my first real fandom was House, and therefore when you get obsessed with, I went down the black hole of everything. And I showed one of my AP classes Blackadder, and people were like, what the fuck is this? Like, hey, it's one of the greatest things ever. And that's when I realized, yeah, I'm an Anglophile. Nobody else around me is, but it's fine. Because the internet existed and live journals. So people could tell, oops, that's my water. People can tell me, online that they love these things.
Yeah.
My next question is, when you made that realization, did you have friends online you shared these things with, going off my earlier statement, or did you actually have friends in real life who shared your interests?
I am like a very good and effective bully of my friends when it comes to things that I like. I talk about this. It's really, really strange that I have started this like online fandom because I am not an online fandom person. And like without Black Girls Create, I wouldn't talk about my fandoms. You would see me on my Twitter feed being like live tweeting shows that I'm watching or, going down like one of my monthly/weekly Richard Iowati like YouTube rabbit holes. And I would like, just tweet into the void, but I wasn't interacting online about that. British media though, and like especially because I got really into like the IT crowd, I always had to do that on my own because I would like make my best friend watch and she'd be like, I just don't get it. Yeah. And it wasn't until I like moved up to the Bay and I met my friend Dara, shout out to Dara, she's going to be on a panel tomorrow, that like I could actually have someone who I could like talk to about like British humor and stuff like that, because my best friend like loves The Office, and I would try to get her to watch the British Office, and I was like, I can't watch the American Office because it's too funny, if that makes sense. Like there's jokes in there, and like there shouldn't be. It should just be all anxiety and awkwardness. Like, the kind of laughter where you're laughing because you're like, and she just like could not do it at all. And so I definitely was like a fan alone, like by myself until Black Girls Create.
I would definitely say I actually started out with friends in person who also watched the same things I did. And it wasn't until my friend Natalie moved that my fandom became got her coffee, that my fandom became more online. And I can definitely say that since I've found Black Girls Create, I've been able to interact more, I guess more about it and not so kind of with myself. But at the same time, it's still kind of split in between the two because I have a lot of friends who watch a lot of British television and, follow British media outside of online. So I would say mine is pretty split between the two, and it always kind of has been. So,
yeah. For me, obviously when I was younger, it was mostly online, but now the switch off between having mostly real life friends talking about British media was definitely around the age of Downton Abbey for me, because that was it was a huge online fandom, but also a lot of my friends who were into Doctor Who at this point were like, oh, I watched Downton Abbey too. And I realized, oh, wait, we're all Anglophiles. This is great. This is wonderful. So it wasn't until a little bit later I found Black Girls Crate. I was like, at first I was like, I'm not a Harry Potter fan or that active in the fandom. But I'm like, oh, wait, there are people here who like the same things I like as well.
Man, our Slack community, the Doctor Who Slack is its own
thing.
Time zone. Like you go in there and it is always popping with something. And I love that. Also, I love Cass. Like I'm an Arsenal fan. And I totally fell off because, as Cass knows, we have been terrible. And it is very hard as a West Coast Arsenal fan to motivate yourself to wake up at 5, 6 in the morning anyway. And then when you know that you're probably going to lose, and in a heartbreaking fashion, it just becomes a non-existent thing. And so then, like, having Cass, like, has gotten me to be like, and Mel, they're like, are you up? Are we watching? I did it, So I think that, like, having Black Girls Crate too, because even the way that, like, our Anglophile conversations, like, they started in Doctor Who, and then people are like, well, have you seen this? Or, they'll have a guest star or someone, and I'm like, oh, like, I remember when Mitchell and Webb voiced the robots, and I was like, oh, Mitchell and Webb. And then, Biana's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then there are people who know what I'm talking about. And so, like, that's been so good for me.
And I'm always the person that's like, oh, have you guys watched this thing y'all never watched before? And I run over to Netflix or Prime and find it. It's great. Now, since we started mentioning a couple of our faves, let's go into what our fave things are and why. I had it breaking down into different categories, but let's start with TV since we already mentioned Doctor Who. So start with favorite British TV shows and why.
Go for it, Kat.
Oh. What's interesting is lately I have not actually been watching a lot of British sitcoms, which is very weird for me because that's kind of how I started. But I would say, like, you have your Poldarks and your Downton Abbeys, which I used to watch a lot of. And like I said, Skins and Misfits was big for me. I will still sit and rewatch Misfits with no problem. For me, as far as TV, I watch a lot of British stand-up, which is not technically TV, but
it still counts. It still counts.
It still counts, right? So I watch a lot of, I guess I do watch like 8 out of 10 Cats or Hypothetical. I watch stuff like that. And so I guess I don't really watch sitcoms anymore, but I definitely watch a lot more of just kind of like standard fare. Like, this is what is actually on British televisions right now. So it's a little bit interesting for me because other than that, I watch a lot of documentaries. As anybody in the Slack can tell you, I watch a ridiculous amount of documentaries because
no shame in that.
I didn't say what?
No shame in documentaries. There's
oh yeah, I love a docuseries. So that's kind of my TV.
Yeah, Robyn. I'm definitely a panel show girl. 8 out of 10 Cats. I remember when I found it. Probably it was like season 16. And shout out to YouTube.
Yeah.
Being what it is. And I can go and I probably at some point should just like, geo-blocking is stupid and we should stop it. Okay, we now live in a global economy with the internet and a global culture, and I shouldn't have to go searching for something. You should just give it to me. And also, you shouldn't be airing something 3 months before in one country and then waiting 3 months because spoilers happen and the internet is forever and right now in real time. Okay.
Yeah.
When I found 8 out of 10 Cats, it's probably like season 16, and I binged as many as possible. Big Fat Quiz of the Year, and then all the big quiz. Yeah. Would I lie to you? I wish that was still going. That was such a good panel show with like, oh my God, it's so great. Or no, Would I Lie to You is still going. I'm sorry, what's the other one? It was the quote one. David posted it. Richard Ayoade was. Anyway, there's so many QI, all of those. And then I have this thing for mysteries. So Death in Paradise is like my go-to, but I hate it, but I also love it. And Doc Martin, which I just love. And then every once in a while I'll like go into like a, Inspector Lewis or something like that. But I haven't watched those full series. Those are just like something I'll like turn on for soothingness. I watched Grant Chester for the first 2 seasons because Jim Norton's so cute. Oh, God.
Facts.
So cute.
And Robyn, thank you for mentioning mysteries. I don't know how I forgot. Like, I love Father Brown.
Oh, Father Brown! Yeah. Oh, I love Father Brown.
Me too. I caught up on BritBox and I'm like,
Yeah. I was so upset when Netflix like took it off after season 6, and I was like, no. And then I realized, oh wait, I have BritBox. I can just go there.
Yeah, Netflix actually is just a general thing. Netflix is losing a lot of its UK content because ITV and BBC are taking their stuff off of Netflix because they were kind of like the middleman for a while, but now they have BritBox and they have other avenues of showing stuff. They just want their money like without a middleman having to deal with it. So that's why stuff like Father Brown and some of the older shows are coming off of Netflix one by one. So yeah, that was
Midsummer Mysteries as well. If you guys want to just like drink tea and cozy down and like watch the dumbest explanations for how they solve these murders.
Yeah,
if you like Murder, She Wrote, you'll love Midsummer.
Exactly.
Midsummer is on
Acorn. So you're the murderer. So
yeah. And somebody just asked about where I can find Father Brown. That would be BritBox. Midsummer is on Acorn. Acorn is also useful, except they have a lot more of the Aussie and Canadian stuff on top of some British stuff. It's kind of a weird mix of like stuff from Australia and the UK and other weird random things they found elsewhere. For me in TV, of course, everything currently on Masterpiece I'm like obsessed with. Poldark changed my life. Just like Downton Abbey did. My saga with Poldark is the entire like journey of like meeting most of the cast and going to set tours with folks in England is crazy. But currently what I'm watching, I'm the person who watches everything with the VPN like 6 months early. So I started watching the controversial A Suitable Boy. There's a lot of story's interesting, but then there's a lot of controversy around the show. It's a period drama set in India in the 1950s. Also watching Endeavor as it's airing on PBS now, although I've already seen it. My favorite, I actually have a favorite UK production company, and they're called Mammoth Screen, and they're awesome. They make Endeavor, Poldark. There's all the Agatha Christie's that are on Amazon recently. Those miniseries are great. Better than that movie with Kenneth Branagh. I'm like, that movie's weird. But the BBC miniseries for recently are great. I'm trying to think of some of my other favorites. Whew, there's a lot. I also, because I bounce between the period dramas and some of the modern crime and mystery shows, stuff like Line of Duty and Bodyguard. Of course, you have to set the edge of your seat. Like, what happened? Who's the killer? You have to. Who's corrupt now? There's so many. I should have wrote down all my faves with that, but I'm like,
there's so many to choose from.
There's too many to choose from. Exactly. Now I have a question about, since we mentioned music earlier, who are your particular music faves?
Okay, here we go. So I have not been able to watch things during quarantine, and like I also have not been able to, like, you'll hear a lot, like I started Poldark and then I just stopped because it's ADD or something. And also that show is bonkers. And like when Amanda started talking about Poldark, I was like, slide in her messenger. Is it supposed to be bonkers? I feel like it's bonkers. She's like, yeah, that's it. I was missing a lot that was going on in Poldark. But music is something that I can just inhale and like, it's always on. Stormzy. I'm just really into like British UK rap right now. So Stormzy and Dave are probably my favorite UK rappers. Stormzy's like part rap, part grime, part singer, because now he sings a lot more. He's like on the new Burna Boy album, just singing. So cool. Mabel, who is Nina Cherry's daughter. I don't know if you guys remember Nina Cherry. She had like she's kind of like a one-hit wonder, but I really loved her. She's like alternative Black girl to the max. But she's like Swedish, I believe. But like Mabel grew up half in Sweden, half in the UK. And like her debut album, High Expectations, is so phenomenal. I love AJ Tracy, who is also a rapper, but his stuff he's like puts a little bit more like garage music in there. Craig David, the GOAT, the Godfather, the reason that I exist. Yeah. I was alive, and then Born to Do It dropped, and then I was born. So Craig David, to this day, like he does a lot more kind of like house music now. Yeah. He had like this like moment where he went like more R&B, but then he went kind of going back to like, you know, his first album was more UK garage, and then he went R&B, and now he's going kind of back that other way. I'll stop there, but there's a long list, and I have a whole playlist. If you guys have Apple Music, I will share it with you. Ooh. It's mostly hip hop though. Gigs, I love him. He raps slow, but it works. I'm like, you're just talking, but it works. I don't care. It's great.
Cass, do you catch up on British music or no?
Not really, which is kind of interesting. Well, I do have some favorites. What I have a tendency to do with music is listen to the same people and the same album over and over and over and over again. And it just becomes like comfort and like background. So
the XX. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
That's my favorite band, and I forgot that they were British.
What, Massive Attack?
No, the XX.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I listen to a lot of Massive Attack, and a lot of FKA Twigs. Generally, though, I just listen to. I listen to a lot of Americans, but they still have that same kind of like Massive Attack sound. So I guess you could say I'm influenced by the sound more than the actual artists themselves. I listen more to like things that are similar to it. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's mostly just because I'm very predictable in my music. I'm just like, if Cass has her radio on, it's probably the same 3 albums that she's been playing since she was 13.
I'm kind of guilty of that too. Like my playlist for British folks have kind of frozen between like my college years of 2007 through like 2011. It's like everybody who's popular at that point, and not a lot else right now. So in terms of Brits, Corinne Bailey Rae, Duffy, Florence and the Machine. I also dived into Beverly Knight because I found her on one of the period drama soundtracks, and I was like, okay, I really like her R&B music. In terms of the thing I stand the most out of British music, it's Jamie Cullum. People are like, what the hell? I'm like, I don't care. Like, I've been listening to 20-something since I was 16. And now I'm 31 and I still listen to it. It's fine.
Oh, so, Leanne LaHavis. Sorry, I almost forgot that one.
I've got Leanne's British. But every time she's on.
So many, like, as you guys are talking, I'm like, oh yeah, Adele is British.
Yes, right.
It's like
British.
And Amy Winehouse. I was still in my Amy Winehouse feels.
Is it 1975 British? I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
If anything, it just shows like how ingrained, as far as music culture goes, how ingrained Britain is with American music culture that we forget that they are from a different country.
Oh, and also just to be true to my pop girl roots, the Spice Girls.
Oh yeah.
S Club 7. I love that show. I used to watch S Club 7's TV show. Five with the rap breakdowns.
Oh my gosh.
Moment in time. Anyway, I could go on and on.
All right. My next question were fave movies in theater, because some folks, I don't know, either or, whoever wants to go on movies in theater.
I have been trying. One Direction is British. Thank you, Bayana. Oh my God. Harry and Niall, I'm so sorry.
Thanks, comment section. You guys are keeping
me honest.
Keeping all of us honest.
I love One Direction. So I have this dream of just going to London I'm gonna have this dream of living in London, but you know, poverty and our visa is worth nothing now as Americans. Yep. But I do just want to go for like 1 to 2 weeks and just like live on the West End and just go to every show possible. I have we've all been really, I guess, lucky. It feels weird to say that we're lucky in the time of Corona, but like that they've been releasing a lot of theater that you can watch now, especially like the British like theater companies. I am not a huge, I don't subscribe to like classics like that, you know what I mean? But like I will watch Tom Hiddleston read a plastic bag. Like I will watch that man sit. I don't care what I will watch him. Yeah. So Coriolanus, and I think I don't know, I can't really pinpoint a lot of British theater besides like what I've stumbled across. And again, like I said, I have not had the attention span to like finish anything sitting in front of a screen. But Coriolanus, I want to watch. I am owed. Damn it. I am owed. I deserve to see Dev Patel in this David Copperfield. I know what you've done, and I'm gonna like at this point, I'm gonna be in your DMs after this. Like I need to see it.
Yeah, I am probably gonna buy the British DVD and a region free premiere at this point because I'm like, Disney and Fox are playing games. They've been playing games with this because it's on. Here's the thing, y'all. It is on UK VOD.
Yeah.
Like, my friend paid like £9 on YouTube, and I'm like, why can't we do that? Like,
why can't we do that? And then they came on. So I also, I watch sports or whatever. There's like a commercial that came on. It's like in theaters, August 28th. And I'm like, in theaters?
Where? Because almost shut them down. Where?
Lately, they're like in theaters and on demand, right? Because they know that no one's going to a theater. It just said in theaters.
Yeah, I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, they would make more money on VOD than like having one indie theater.
I will buy it 5 times. Like, I don't care. Just
I will pay $40 for it. I don't
care. Dev Patel is in a cravat, and I can't see it.
Not just that, like Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, Rory is in it. Ben Whishaw is in it. Oh my God,
Ben Whishaw.
I still have feels for the hour, y'all, and it's been 6 years. I know. It's
Ben Whishaw is amazing. Yeah,
I'm like, y'all need to stop playing with this. For theater, it's basically this for me in quarantine right now. It's just like, oh my God, it's all my favorite actors from all the different masterpiece things in their theater productions. Like, this is wonderful. Yeah, I don't keep track of theater as much as I do movies. Is basically whatever is costume related in a movie. I will inevitably see it. Like the new Emma adaptation, that was awesome. There's a bunch. I'm sure I'm gonna forget the movie side of things. I'm so hyper focused on the TV side. I'm like, there's so many movies, but Emma's a recent fave and British, so I'm gonna go with that for now.
I think as far as like any recent movies for me, it would probably be Belle.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me, and it's because like we were all saying, PBS and Masterpiece Theater was like a big part of our discovery of English media and British media in general. And finally you have this period piece with a Black lead. So like that was I can't even count how many times I've watched Belle at this point. And though it's technically TV, it's basically like 4 movies put together, The Hollow Crown.
Oh yes.
And each episode is 2.5 hours. So that's a movie.
Yeah, Hollow Crown was awesome. Yeah.
And that kind of like straddles both of those, theater plus movies plus TV. It kind of straddles all 3 of them. And I actually just recently rewatched the very first episode, the Richard II episode, when Ben Whishaw plays Richard. Oh, the drama is very The drama. I'll just put it this way: the way Ben Whishaw plays Richard II is so funny to me, in a great way, because it's very dramatic and very Phoenix King Ozai. For anybody who watches Avatar, it's very like, oh, woe is me. And I'm just like, I have never seen somebody be so dramatic and so moving at the same time.
Actually, speaking, Belle was like a transformative experience for me because as somebody who's always been, watching these British period dramas and seeing like no black people, and all of a sudden I see Gugu Mbatha-Raw and I'm like, this is groundbreaking.
Right.
This is groundbreaking. Anybody who hasn't seen Belle in the comment section, I see you and you should fix that.
I've already messaged Nicole off to the side.
Yeah. Please post.
But Belle, I think we were doing this like Black Girl Movie Club, which we should bring back. And we watched Belle because I was in my Pride. I watch Pride and Prejudice, no joke, like 4 to 5 times a year. And that is a 6-hour miniseries. And I watch it in one go. Like I watch it at the most, it'll take me 2 days, but it's not above me to be like, oh, I didn't go to sleep because, I started watching Pride and Prejudice at 10 p.m.
Wow, you were way
but I was talking about how there has not been a good Persuasion adaptation, in my opinion. And there have been good parts of each Persuasion adaptation, but there has not been, for me, like a holistically like good adaptation. And shout out to Eliana Yisrael, who is the director. She told me about Belle, and we sat down and we watched it together. And it was so moving, and it was also like very truthful. I feel like they didn't shy away from a lot of things where you think that they might gloss over it or pretend as though, because the Brits love to pretend like racism isn't an issue for them. And that's like their favorite hobby. And so I just also loved Belle because it was truthful in that way. And yeah, so everyone should go see that. I think it's speaking also of Gugu, and I don't know if this is a British production, but Beyond the Lights.
It was kind of half British, half
British. It was kind of like half and half.
Yeah. But she's in it. Minnie Driver plays her mother, and that to me was just like, and if you like musical theater, it has a very gypsy quality to it, just in terms of the storyline and stuff, and it's musical. So I would, definitely Beyond the Lights as well.
Since you mentioned racism, that's actually my next set of questions. So how, of course, it's rare. It's even more rare sometimes in British media to see Black creatives doing things. So who are your favorite Black creatives and their productions, and why?
Go ahead, Rob. So I would say Gugu for sure. She does like really great things. Natalie Emanuel. She was Missandei in Game of Thrones. She's been doing some really cool things. She's also like best friends with Luke Youngblood, who played Lee Jordan in Harry Potter, for the Harry Potter fans. So like, just go like look at their Instagrams and like, yeah, they're adorable. I'm going to shout out Ashley Roman. She is an actress. She played Black Hermione and Hermione Granger in the Quarter Life Crisis web series, but she's been doing a lot of like really cool things. And she's been getting like, she was on the most recent season of Shameless, I believe. And so she's been also like, just like, she's a Nosferatu, which I love her. I want to support her so much. I'm not watching that. It's too scary. So I see her like posting clips and I'm like, look at Ashley. And then I'm like, never gonna watch it. I need to sleep. I would follow her. And then again, it goes back to like music, like Stormzy does like really amazing things. He like sets up programs for like Black youth. He like is open about it. Dave has a song called Black that is like one of the most moving things about just like the Black diasporic experience, like the similarities being Black in a lot of different places. And if you really want to hear him like go in, he performed the song on the Brits, and he added a verse, and he like specifically called these people out at the Brits to their face about like their treatment of Meghan Markle, the ways in which they talk about Black news on the media, like what happens with the Greenfeld housing. Like he goes in, and it is very powerful and very beautiful to see. So I would say Dave, Gugu, Ashley Romans, just for a quick 3.
If I would do a quick 3, I'd probably say I feel like you can't talk about Black British creatives almost without talking about Michaela Cole.
Yeah.
Yes. Richard and Lottie. Oh my
God. So Michaela Cole, because I've been watching, I feel like the first time I ever saw her was in Rock and Rolla, but Tandy Newton.
Yeah.
And I would say probably Sophie Okonedo. So I would say those would probably be the 3 people that when they're in something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch that. Or when they create something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch that.
For sure. I'll stole everybody I was going to name. I'm like, oh crap, you guys already mentioned them. I'm going to throw in one more person because he has not been mentioned yet. Idris Elba. I'm actually going to spotlight on BritBox. He has a short like film series 5x5 on BritBox. It was really, really interesting because he plays in it for a teeny bit, but he actually directed and did some stuff behind the scenes, which is awesome. Because it's usually of course when everybody mentions him, it's always Luther. I mean, not that Luther's great, but you know what I mean. It's something a little less high profile from him. So I also like his sitcom In the Long Run, which I think is on Stars in the United States. That was kind of his like life story that was not always mentioned when people bring him up. I see. Oh, and somebody else mentioned Bayana did mention John Boyega. Yes. That's
gosh.
Oh God, we
have failed.
So wonderful. Yeah,
no, we are failing.
Right.
We're failing live on the internet.
John Boyega's manager, whose name I'm completely blanking on, did a series which you can find on Netflix. It's called When They See Us, and
yeah, that's Netflix. The disrespect. Sorry. I should probably say as a caveat, I'm not a Star Wars person, so that's sort of sometimes why I'm like, I forget about John. But then, of course, I know he's other non-Star Wars stuff, like Attack the Block and his older movies. But yeah, we have to shout him out in this forum.
Yeah.
But Robyn, did we lose you?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's
happened. It's like she's on freeze. It's weird. It is very, very weird. Now, now we've kind of brought up all of our favorite things. My question I had in terms of race, in terms of like the youth being Black and being an Anglophile, is how has it been reconciling the two things with you, Cass? Welcome back, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. It's interesting because as a Black Anglophile, especially, I feel like when you watch something that is British or English, you start, you look for people who look like you, right? And it's something that it's interesting because most of the people I know who are Anglophiles are non-white, right? So as far as finding space with Americans who love British and English media, I don't feel like an outsider. But there are times where I'll watch something and feel like an outsider. And it goes back to what Robyn said earlier about how sometimes things are glossed over. I remember quite a while ago, I would watch British media and think it was so great how there was so many different people of color. And then it hit me, it's one thing for them to be there, but for you not to acknowledge their, what they're going through, how their lives are different from the white characters, it feels like a microaggression. So it's probably part of why, I don't know, sometimes it's hard for me to watch certain things. Like I love Father Brown, but there have been very, very, very few episodes of Father Brown where there is a Black person or a brown person. And it is usually very exoticized, and it can make me sad sometimes. There was an episode in season 8 where there was a Black character who wasn't exoticized, but rather her very obvious different race was completely ignored. And it's this very weird. There was a moment where she said something about how she was being judged, but she said she was being judged for being working class. And I was like, oh, honey, they're also judging you for your color. And like in my mind, I'm like, if they're trying to be kind of more true to what's happening, they would acknowledge that. But it was just kind of
back, sort of. Hopefully, yay! Hopefully.
Hi, Robyn, you back?
I'm back. I just switched room, so sorry.
To catch you up, we're talking about reconciling being Black and watching British media, which doesn't always acknowledge our identities as people and how they treat race compared to American television.
Yeah.
For me, I've been in the front lines, in the trenches with the period drama fans trying to acknowledge race and how shows, it's great when you see blind casting, but a lot of times they don't acknowledge the realities of the characters. My most recent debacle of that was Sanditon, which is one of the PBS period dramas. That's an entire saga, and probably it could be its own panel with how much I went through with trying to talk to Brits and European fans about how the show, because it was written by a white man, it did bring up some of this racist tension, but then the plot, because they wanted to prioritize the romantic drama over the clear racial struggle that Georgiana was going through, kind of threw Georgiana on the bus. And I'm like, if someone Black was writing that, we wouldn't have that same story. People wouldn't be calling her selfish for defending her identity or calling her rude or whatever. But of course, in the fandom, it turned into
ungrateful.
She's ungrateful for resisting racist treatment. I'm like, but the fandom glorifies the racist folks that did stuff to her. They glorified a pineapple, which again, she's from the West Indies, and pineapples were a result of slavery. You know, slaves grew the plants. So I'm like, this is, And
I'm glad I have not watched this, because I'd probably just be mad right now.
Yeah. And what was more maddening, of course, is that I tell people on Twitter what they're about, and then they're just up in your DMs and whatever, like bullying you for weeks, months. It finally stopped, but at one point, even folks from the cast had to be like, because obviously in recent media events are like, oh wait, we're analyzing ourselves, and we're like, wait, this Anderson really didn't do the great job with this issue. I was like, yeah, and now they realize that. But yeah, it's been a journey. Like since I live tweet a lot of the UK shows live for them, like I see folks talking like angry every single time a brown person's on or Black person's on screen. I'm like, are you guys kidding me right now? Like
I remember when Bayana and I went to London to go see The Cursed Child, which, whatever, we did it. And we were talking to someone about what we do here, and they were like, well, that's weird. Why would you say Black girls? Why would you do that? We don't have that here. And I was like, when we landed in London, there was a Black Lives Matter protest. You just ignore these things. Like, where do you think we got racism from? It's your number one export. It's like what you like. Genre of racism and colonialism. Like, you really leveled up there, and you need to own it. You know, it's like really, really, really frustrating.
It is, and
in all. Sorry, I was gonna say, like, it's really, really frustrating in all areas of British culture. And even just in seeing, like I said, the Dave song Black, like the backlash he got from just, it was a pro-Black song, and it talked about like the experiences that happened, and like, you know, how Africa's like regions are named after what they export and what you take from them, you know, Gold Coast, Slave Coast, you know what I mean, Ivory Coast. And it's named for what has been pillaged. And there was so much backlash against him and saying that song was racist. Stormzy set up a foundation and a charity helping Black youth and got a lot of pushback saying that in and of itself was racist because it focused on Black youth in Britain. But at the same time, like Grenfell Towers burns down and nothing, So it's just like, we have our own problems, obviously. And like, I don't want to like speak on Afro-British.
Yeah, and it's just it becomes really maddening because it almost feels like sometimes we're at a different acknowledgement stage in the US than the UK. Both are very racist, but the US is more easily able to acknowledge it because it was codified. Whereas with the UK, it wasn't as overt, and with the US, it was built on it. It was built on racism. So people are like, oh, one of the things that drives me crazy about Brits and Europeans in general is they go, well, we're not as racist as the United States. It's like, you're just because your racism is more polite does not mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And even then, it's more insidious because, jumping out of the UK for a second, when you look at like Black Pete, come on, it becomes so much worse. It's like almost worse because you won't acknowledge it's there, but you do it in the most horrendous ways. And so it's just like, it's kind of like how nobody seems to acknowledge that the reason why Meghan Markle gets so much flack is because she's Black.
Yeah, the UK media, I mean, even if you saw Blackout Tuesday, like in June after George Floyd protests, like so many people were still like, this is an American problem. No, It's not, because the cops, there's police brutality cases in the UK. I mean, as it was, there was very recently the BBC put out this short film called Anthony, which is about this teenager who unfortunately died in 2005 because a gang of racist youths attacked him in the park randomly. He was just out hanging out with his friends, and they just got angry at him and killed him basically. And that was only in 2005, and people are still like, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's a new thing. No, it's not. Like,
I mean, a few days ago, if you look at his name's Billy Steele, he was on the tube and possibly high, but that's not an excuse, railing against these young Black men, calling them lesser, calling them pets, and then walked up on one of them, got knocked out. It was very satisfying to watch. Sorry to say, but like that just happened. That like is this month, and so like and he said in his tirade, it was a tirade, that it's now okay, and he with Trump and Boris, like all these people in power, they are feeling more empowered to say these things, but yet still hide behind it's a US problem.
Yeah, and for them, it's like, well, we abolished slavery. I'm like, yes, but also y'all caused it. So,
it's like you were a major part of it in the first place.
Yeah, it's like every time people like John Boyega are on Twitter, or even the historian David Olusoga, who
I was about to mention him. Yeah,
he's awesome at dragging these racists and explaining why the history behind it. It's like, y'all caused this problem,
right?
And then in the industry now, they all want to seem aware and stuff, but I'm like, yes, you guys are aware and saying these things, but the structural problems are not being addressed. You're not hiring enough Black actors. You're not hiring Black writers to tell Black stories. Right. You guys are still, even that film Anthony I mentioned, it was a white screenwriter, so it's still not, we're still not there. And the couple times there are Black screenwriters, it's of course universally trashed in media. Noughts and Crosses, which is based on the Mallory Blackman YA novel. It came out there, a lot of Black crew on set and stuff. It got destroyed on Twitter. Of course, there are fans who loved it, but like the racist came out in droves. There was even like a defund the BBC campaign about this. I'm like, really? The one time we get pro-Black content on BBC, y'all are saying to defund it. But then, of course, they want to be able to say the N-word on BBC newscasts at the same time. Right. So, like, what is it going to be? It's like, you guys are talking a lot of PR about this stuff, and you guys have not even begun to acknowledge the structural problems. It's not to say we don't have structural problems, but it's way worse than England. Because again, there's no such thing as BET. There's no there's no UK equivalent to that at all. Like and we have a bunch of like Black media spaces. There is no UK Tyler Perry.
Sorry, go ahead.
So sort of like there are several steps behind us, even with the problems. Okay, Nicole.
Yeah, I would say it even like it starts to affect.
Yeah,
I'm in a delay, I guess. I was going to say it affects us here as well because we get into this whole, Danica is being cast at Fred Hampton, and then we get this whole like, why are Black Brits coming and taking all of our jobs? And it's like the problem is actually that there are just not enough jobs. There are not enough jobs for them in the UK. There's not enough jobs for us here. There's not enough writers. There's not enough representation. And when you make it seem like the representation you get is this sum total and it's only going to be this small slice, then you start to make competition between people when they're all talented and brilliant. And as an actor, you should be able to play you should find the best actor for the role and you should be able to play any role. You don't have to, sometimes you do need to fit the identity, right? You can't have just a white person playing Fred Hampton. You should not have a cis person always playing trans people. Like sometimes it does, your identity very much matters in the roles that you get cast for. But like we should be able to accept Black Brits playing American historical figures and Black Americans playing British historical figures or whatever, you know what I mean? But because there is just not enough opportunity, then it becomes an issue between the diaspora, and that's how you start to get diaspora wars. When, to be honest, the villain is who the villain has always been, the real villain,
Right, and then that starts, and even when you talk about, especially when you're representing historical figures in the U.S. or the UK, it becomes an even bigger issue when you go with the rest of the diaspora, especially with African historical figures, because I cannot actually remember any point in time where I've seen a movie or a TV show with a African historical figure being played by an African person that was not raised in the United States or raised in Britain and acknowledges themselves as nationally American or British. And so that opens up a whole nother issue because it's just like, it goes back to what Robyn was saying. There's just not enough opportunity for all the talent there.
Yeah.
And it's disguised as, oh, well, we're just trying to make sure we get the best of the best, when in reality, it's like, we're trying to keep you contained.
Totally. There's a couple things in the comments. Nicole asks us what shows are doing it right as far as representation goes. It's an interesting question to turn it back positive. And then, of course, there's comments about how they don't acknowledge Black British history in schools. Of course they don't. Like, I had to find all that stuff out on my own as soon as folks from Doctor Who fandom started complaining about Martha's episodes. I had to go find all these books and things on my own. But let's answer Nicole's question about which shows we believe are doing it right.
Whew. I don't know that obviously all shows have issues and problems. I hate to use this one because I also don't know much about the behind the scenes, which I think is very, very important, right? So like what you see on front of the screen, if it's, Black and beautiful and melanated, is great to a certain extent, but if everyone's making the decisions behind the scenes, that's still an issue. But I feel like Michaela Cole chewing gum, her most recent project I have not seen because it's too triggering for me, but I've heard wonderful things, and so if it's not, if you can do it, I go forth and do that. But I think that Michaela Cole in general is trying. She's, to me, is like the British Issa Rae, where she's doing really interesting things. She's writing the stuff that she wants to see, and she's making that kind of happen. So,
I would have to agree with Robyn. It feels, Michaela Cole and Issa Rae are similar in that way that they are creating the opportunities that they want to see for their communities. And I think that it's sad that that's really the only example, because I would hope, and I'm pretty sure that she doesn't want to be the only one. You know, nobody wants to be the only one. It's lonely. But somebody has to pave the way. Somebody has to break the glass. Somebody has to open the door. And I look at Issa Rae and I look at Michaela Cole and I see a similar kind of thread of trying to create the space for people to come behind them and join them. Unfortunately, that's the only person I can think of, and that becomes an issue. It's because, you know, you can have Black people on the screen, but who's writing their characters? Who's giving the money? Who's distributing it? And how and why? You know, it becomes, it's like a reminder that media is always got an element of politics to it.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's unfortunate, but I feel that it seems like she's the only creator that is creating the kind of content that we are talking about needs to be represented more.
Yeah. I wish folks could see I would actually add Noughts and Crosses in again. I wish folks could see it in America, but the BBC's been dragging its feet about it. Probably because the books are out of print right now. But they had Kobe Adam and several Black folks behind the cameras, not just in front of it, and depicting an Afro-futuristic world. Although it's a dystopia, but it was sort of a reminder that even when they adapt Black authors and writers, so much of why they adapt things is because those stories specifically deal with racism. There was actually another BBC production, The Long Song, which is one of Andrew Levy's novels. It was set in Jamaica, but of course it's all around slavery and freedom.
Yeah.
It is extremely rare to get a Black British production that's not about slavery, racism in any way, shape, or form. We still not there yet.
And it's unfortunate, but I see that across pretty much the entire Western world.
Oh, of course.
Because that's something that really aggravates me about American media as well. It's just like, I'm tired. You know, we are more than our struggle. You know, it's a very important part of how we move through the world and how we interact and how we communicate, but it is not our whole being. We are individual people with individual stories and individual likes, dislikes, loves, hates, cultures, classes, and it's just like that nuance gets completely flattened to slaves. And in the US, it's slavery or civil rights. And it's like there's nothing other than that. And it's thankfully changing, and we're getting that space to have stories outside of it, but it is still the overwhelming kind of representation of Black people in world media, and particularly in the US and particularly in the UK, that it's always so hurtful, you know? And I think that that's something that needs to be acknowledged, is that if you show to Black children that your life is nothing but struggle and sadness, what do you expect them to grow up as? So.
Yeah, seriously. Oh yeah, there was a Windrush drama from the BBC. I forgot what it's called, but unfortunately, it's one of those. Again, I don't think it's in the US yet. I forgot what it's called, but it was, again, Windrush is basically the movement that moved Caribbean folks from the British colonies to England in search of work in the late 40s and onward. But of course, recently, many of them had their citizenship revoked, which of course, yes, it's great to have radical representation, but talking about the racism behind the Windrush movement, it's still not exactly progress. That they're at least saying it happened, but at the same time, like, there's still people suffering from having their citizenship revoked. So it's sort of like, a lot of times it's just kind of set dressing that they're talking about these things broadly. But what I hope comes out of this movement, this latest round of protests, that we do get the stories we want to see. We do see more than just the struggle in history. We see science fiction programming that is Black focused, or even somebody's romance novel. I mean, Black romance novel, or just a random like slice of life story, or family drama, or sitcom. Just anything that is pushing away from what we've seen in the past. Hope that's it.
Right. And it's a weird balancing act too, because like I said earlier, like you want, especially when you have a Black character in a period drama, you want to make sure you acknowledge. And I mean, this is the struggle. Honestly, this is what Black folks we deal with every day. The trauma of dealing with structured and microaggressive racism paired with personality and your life. So it's part of why it's very important to have those people who live that life write that life, because people from the outside are going to write what they think of that life. It's like, oh, sadness and racism and strength and resilience. Like, yeah, but that's not all. Or they go the complete opposite and go, everything's fine, they're just brown. Like, no.
What we're missing is nuance and experience, and also just, just good old, like, I guess relativity is a good word for it. It's like, I can relate this person outside of, all of the obvious cosmetics of things. I just realized we're actually at our time point. I hope we answered all your questions in the comments. Thank you guys so much thank you, Robyn and Cass, for joining me on this journey through Black and Anglophile fandom. There will be more panels to come on the Kuumba Kickback. Actually, I'm actually on the next one, which is the navigating fandom spaces while Black. Thank you guys so much. I hope I answered all our questions. Where can folks find you for additional, just questions, info, feedback, whatever?
Yeah, you can continue the conversation with me and let me know all the people I forgot to name drop. I'm at Robyn_rambles on Twitter, and Black Girls Create all day, every day. That's where you can find me. And I will be in the chats for the rest of the day.
Cool. Kat, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. My podcast account, which is coming out September 1st. That is when the first episode drops. You can find the podcast Twitter at Cass_Cleo, CLIO. And you can find me at Lady_Ransom, like the crime, no E. And I can answer any questions you have or anything like that there.
Yeah. My Twitter page, where I'm screaming about period dramas all day, every day, and also racists in period drama fandom, is at Amanda-Rae Prescott. I have tons of just things there, and my reviews and stuff are there as well, and my hot takes and my live tweets and everything else. And of course, I'm a fountain of Rex for anything British media related, especially if it's a period drama or crime show. So hop on by. Thank you guys so much. And thanks to our audience. You guys are amazing. All right.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.